Welcome to Around the World in 80 Fabrics. Tonight, I'm just going to try to briefly share with you a little bit about what we have in store for 2025, and I hope you might consider joining us as we look to explore and biophilic explorations of adventures. So, who's ATW80F? Journeys. We are educational adventures, and we're created by the ATW80F Fabrics Foundation. We're a nonprofit, and we're a leader in biodiversity and ecology of textiles. So if you really want to go in depth, please take a screenshot of our website here, and you can explore our rich collection as we trying to look and explore all of the non-petroleum possibilities on this planet. We're very passionate about plastic-free fabrics and planetary health. And as we look to try to find out, where do our clothes come from? And in fact, not only just who makes them, but their ecosystems that they arise from. So I really hope that you might consider joining us, becoming part of the materials revolution as we try to explore the wealth of biodiverse alternatives, and so we can learn how we can better live on this planet. So what the hey is biophilia, and what is a biophilic adventure? Biophilia is a term that was created by a real mentor of mine. His name was E.O. Wilson, an amazing sociobiologist. He really loved ants and a lot more. He thought about how we could try to save a third of the planet for conservation. But biophilia, he says, is the human's innate tendency to connect with nature and other life forms. And the word literally means love of life. So if you love life, please come and join us. This is a picture while I was out chasing the wild silks of Assam, and I invite you to come and join me if you're intrepid enough. I don't know if any of you who may not know who I am. I am a medical anthropologist. I've lived the last 30 years of over 40 years actually, of my life in the Himalayas, and with over 20 years in Mongolia with nomad herders. And I have an insatiable curiosity. And as a medical anthropologist, I'm really fascinated right now, particularly not only in people and their relationship to textiles, but really that entanglement of humans from microbes to yaks, and really that whole extraordinary history and heritage of our clothing. So get into your most exciting, adventurous outfit, hopefully non-petroleum, and let's go for a little adventure. So we have a lot of things in store. I really wanted to share my closest places that I know from the deepest place in my heart, and that I could really share in depth with people that I really love, and share those worlds. And I want to just take today to share a little bit of the differences. You might be, why are there two different trips to Mongolia? What are the differences? Why are there two trips to India? And what are their differences? And trust me, their differences are as great as if you were going on a trip to Florida or Montana. These are very, very diverse ecosystems, and that's why. So I hope you might consider joining us on one of these great grand adventures. Some of them are a little more luxury, and some of them are a little more roughing it. So we're going to start in Mongolia, under the great blue sky of Iktenger. I like this image of the sky because in a way it almost looks like felt, doesn't it? It almost looks like the cloth. There's great mythology and folklore about the sacred celestial sheep grazing. I once had nomads sharing with me, and that whenever they would eat at the top of the clouds, turquoise would fall to the ground. That's my husband and one of my two sons. We spent over 20 summers up on the Mongolian steppes, raising our family up there. And I can't even begin to tell you all the lessons of what we learned up in Mongolia that I'd love to share with you. Very profound way of life. Up with the Mongols and the nomads. often on pilgrimage, and especially what you can learn from the horse. I consider the horse one of my profound teachers. And so for any of you that are interested, please let me know, and I can send on other links that we have that go into great depth. This is our overall general one. We did one on nomads and fibers. We'll have our Altai Mountains Kazakh felting and eagle hunting will be Sunday, October 6th. Ladakh Ecology and Textiles will be on Sunday, November 3rd. Bhutan will be on Sunday, November 24th. And Assam will be on Sunday, December 6th. All of those are at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And I can send everybody links to remind you if you're interested in coming live. I'm also really happy to send you links to learn more. So Nomad and Fibers of the Steppes. Let's explore this trip for a moment. It's August 9th to 19th. I strongly encourage anyone who wants to, we can help you to add on if you want to go to the Gobi or a desert, or you want to experience the reindeer nomads up in the north. The cost of this trip is $5,500. Single supplement is $875, and $500 of this is tax deductible and will go for helping to support Around the World in 80 Fabrics with our mission of trying to encourage and educate people globally on the importance of non-petroleum fabrics and their impact on the soil and our oceans and waterways. This is a map, sorry, I meant to blow this up, of all of Mongolia. So on this trip, we're going to go into that pink section in the center, into the Arhangai in the central region. And I'm not going to go into elaborate detail here on the itinerary, but let's suffice it to say that we're in for a grand adventure, and we're going to be starting, and I'll go a little more over as we move on, but I want to share with you what is the focus of this trip. We're going to go into the heartland, which is actually, it's one of the second largest intense gathering of yak nomads on the planet. It's the largest last nomadic civilization left on this planet. And we're going to go in a deep dive into felt. And as many of you may know, after humans were wearing skin, felt is one of the oldest forms of textiles known to humankind, and nowhere than in Mongolia is a better place. So all the way back in history, 6,500 years BC in Turkey, as we know, is the oldest form of felt, which is also where we know where sheep, and we're going to go into the deep in the domestication. Closer to Mongolia, in Pazyryk in Siberia, we have amazing archaeological discoveries. And I just want you to see, when you see the fibers, you start to have a greater appreciation as we're looking into synthesizing. But you see, our animal protein fibers still have very unique morphological shapes, and that is one of the things that helps to create felt. And felt, there's a reason we haven't given up on making felt. And the Mongols, as you all know, would use it also not only for clothing, but also for building materials, for building their fabulous and extraordinary, we know them as yurts, they're called gers in Mongolia. And we're going to learn a lot about the deep history, as we'll have a chance to experience what it's like to live as a nomad. And we'll all have our own yurts or gers. So some of the great highlights of this trip will not only be horse riding for anyone who wants to ride or to learn to ride. The soft steppes is one of the greatest places, this horse culture. It's living with nomad herders, and we're going to understand the ecological challenges that they face. And we may also be able to learn a song or two. I wanted to share with you because people, for me, are one of the reasons that I love to travel. And this is Enkbolt and Mugi. They're a husband and wife artisan team. They're renowned, very, very well known, not just in Mongolia, but for the world. They had exhibitions at the Arts Biennial in Venice. Here, they're with us at the Smithsonian Folk Art with this spectacular quilt of 5 jewels. And what are the 5 jewels of Mongolia are the 5 fibers. And though that is, that's horse, that's camel, that's yak, that's sheep, and that's goat. And those are the magical jewels. And we're going to go into depth with that. And we're going to be able to spend some time with Enkbolt and Mugi, extraordinary artisans. They're right now in Cambridge with an incredible exhibition on really extraordinary work. Mugi works with horsehair, which is extremely challenging. This itinerary will begin in the bustling, modern, contemporary city of Ulaanbaatar, where you can see where old and new contrast in an extraordinary way. We'll be staying very comfortably at the Best Western Hotel. I encourage anyone who wants to come in a little bit earlier if you want to get over. It's a long flight. We're almost halfway around the world. Fascinating, extraordinary history. We're going to go and visit Ganden Choling, a Buddhist monastery known as the Place of Joy, and learn about this revitalization post-Soviet communism in Mongolia of Buddhism. And we're also then we're going to head out. We're going to leave the big city, the bustle, the craziness. We're also going to go to an amazing museum, the National Museum, where we'll see some of these extraordinary felt pieces. But we're going to go to Hustainor, the national park, where they've reintroduced the Przhelovsky horse. And the Przhelovsky horse, it almost went extinct. It's an amazing story of revitalization. Many say when you look at them, you'll see how close they look to even the Lascaux paintings. They're probably the oldest feral animal in the world. And we're going to go deep dive into the domestication of horses. I have a good colleague, William Taylor, and he's just come out with a fabulous book called Beaten Hoofs, which really goes into detail into the history of horses on our planet. We're going to have a Mongolian botanist with us. She's amazing. And we're going to learn a little bit not only about just the plants in the Hustainor, but also about natural plant dyes. We're going to stop at a place where they're bringing back the traditional guard dogs, Barkor, they're called, these extraordinary mastiffs. And we may have a chance to ride Bactrian camels for anyone who would like to try that. They're one of my most favorite animals, and any of you that have any desire to come to the Gobi, it can go down to -40 in the middle of winter for the last largest gathering of Bactrian camel herders on the planet. Come join me. Please message me. We'll be going to Erden Zoo, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we'll be meeting with one of my very good, respected friends and colleagues, Humble Lama, who leads the monastery and is a very important figure in the revitalization of Buddhism on the steppes. And he's fascinated by neuroscience, and he actually has a traditional Mongolian Buddhist teacher, and he has Alan Wallace, a Buddhist teacher from the West. A fascinating man as we learn about the challenges post-communism, bringing Buddhism back. And after that, we're going to head deep into Yak country, and we'll spend some time amongst the Yak nomads. We're going to learn about this extraordinary animal and its adaptation to harsh environments and how its impact on the grasslands versus the Kashmir goats. And of course, we're going to learn about the people. And for myself as a woman, I love to spend time with the women. It's summertime when milk products are busily being made. And we're coming at just an absolutely gorgeous time. August is also a time of weddings. It's really some of the very, very best weather that Mongolia has. And they always say when the mare's milk flows, life is good. All of us will be able to be drinking our coffee with yak milk in it. It's a rich, powerful time. People that are living a lifestyle, as it's fascinating to see how their intimate relationship with animals, and what we can learn from them as we also will learn how to make felt And after we learn to process and make felt ourselves, we're going to have a shaman come in, and we're going to learn about the revitalization of shamanism on the steppes, which is extremely fascinating. We'll also get to experience a Naadam, which is a festival for the three manly arts. That's archery and wrestling, and of course, horse racing. My young boys used to always be involved. You have to retire by age 13. It's very exciting. And of course, there's the fabulous fashion of Mongol wrestling, bikinis and boots. There's nothing like it. And I'll tell you the story if you come about why their chests are open, because once a woman beat them, and after that, they had to make sure that only men were allowed. But really, we're going to take a deep dive. I encourage you, it's a great trip. It's not just for textile nerds, because it's the natural history and the ecosystem. We're going to see where the felt fits into the ecosystem. So I encourage any of you who want to bring family, husbands. It's wonderful because we also have horse riding and a lot of other events. But for those of us who are interested in learning how to make felt with nomads up on the steppes, please come and join us. This is some of the traditional ways with the rolling that they would use. And there's nothing like waking up and having free range, no fences, with the yaks mooing outside your yurt. This is our camp where we'll be staying, Lapis Sky Camp. As you can see, the animals graze freely. We are right beside the Tamir River, and we're going to learn about the sacredness and sacred geography that surrounds us. It's called Bunkan, the Valley of the Ancestors, because there are ancient Bronze Age sites in this region. Very, very special place. So why this trip? To explore and live nomadic culture, to ride horses on the steppes and make felt with yak herders, to live in a ger and experience. We want wild, biophilic, experiential education. That's really what our ATW80F trips are about. But you'll also experience the music and meet local shamans to understand the deep ecology behind the materials. I hope you will leave with a profound, greater respect for the land, the people, and the materials. So who's best suited for it? If you're adventurous and curious, you want to be engaged, to make meaningful cross-cultural connections, to explore the interface between humans and animals of the steppes. And if you love nomadic culture or love horses, if you're interested in learning and sharing steppe ecology and the biodiversity of textiles, and you're humorous, flexible, and intrepid. The weather can be very variable. It can be cold, it can be warm, it can be hot. And the trip is really not for you if you require all the amenities of modern life, if you need internet connectivity 24/24, and you're not willing to travel to remote places, I don't recommend it. But if you want a very genuine and intimate experience that you won't get by just joining a regular tour, please consider joining. This will be a very, very life-transforming trip. I can guarantee that. So now we're going to move to another part of Mongolia, the far, far west, near with the Altai Mountains. I should have pictures of the Altai Mountains, but it is famed for the eagle hunters. I don't know if any of you have seen that fabulous The Eagle Huntress. It's a fantastic documentary, and I recommend it. And with the music, we're also going to be going because the Kazakh women, this is a Muslim region where the trip before is in a Buddhist region. So we're going to learn about the Kazakhs, their migrations in, and they are some of the most famed, renowned felt makers living on this planet. And if you can see some of the beautiful work on the top part there of the yurt, and we're going to be able to make some felt with women there. And so this trip also costs $5,500. There's a $500 tax deductible donation. A single supplement is $600. We're going to be flying all the way far out to Bayanulgi. We are going to be meeting with with eagle hunters. again, I'm not going to go into full detail on the trip here, but we will be going to ride for a day on horses. It's no problem if you want to ride in the van, if riding on horses is not your thing. And also what's exciting is we're going to be going to a World Heritage UNESCO petroglyph site of ancient petroglyphs. So between the textiles, between the eagle hunters, we'll be at an eagle hunting festival, and the petroglyphs and the wild mountains of the Altai Mountains, it's really an extraordinary. If you love raw and wild spaces and places, I strongly recommend. This is a very unique and intimate experience. And I'm heading up there on Saturday. So anyone wants to hear fresh, I can tell you in October all about my experiences there. Now we're going to head to India, and we're going to head to the farthest northern part of India to a region called Ladakh. And this will be a trip that will be September 20th to 28th. And the cost again is 5,500 per person, and a single supplement is 830. So that's a little teeny map, but you can see the little red part. That's Ladakh. It's really once was part of Tibet. So it's culturally a Tibetan region in many ways. The Ladakhis speak a very archaic form of Tibetan language. We say Jule instead of Tashi Dele up there. I'm not, again, going to go into details. You can find this on the website of our day today. But the highlights of this trip first of all, for me at least, just even the flight. If just flying, we will meet up in Delhi, and then we take this flight. So if any of you have been to India, but you haven't been to Ladakh, you are missing a lot. It's a very, very special, unique place. It was only really open in 1978, and it's raw mountains. It's kind of like Tibet without the Chinese occupation and political challenges that Tibet faces today. But one of the reasons that I'm so excited, and Ladakh is a place that is challenging with climate change. It's a high desert plateau. So if anyone has issues with altitude, I would recommend the Mongolian trips, which people think, oh, well, it's way up in the north, it must be high altitude, but it isn't. Whereas Ladakh is at a higher altitude. And also, so how are they going to adapt? This is a monk wearing his robes with a big hunk of ice glacier. And I just love this adaptation. Talk about innovation. This Sekmol and a man named Sering Wangchuk was so creative. And look, they realized, because with the melting of the glaciers, that they might have to make their own, and they call them ice stupas. And stupa means the mind of the Buddha. And so they make them in wintertime, and then they actually wait until when they melt, it melts down and it can feed the fields. So very exciting and innovative ways of adapting, and we hope to work on a project with textiles linked with these ice stupas. But I'm most excited about this trip because who is going to be hosting us? And on the far left, you'll see a picture, and that's of Tsering Angtak and Catherine Ale. They are husband and wife. Tsering Angtak comes traditionally from a Ladakhi sheep herding family. You can also see some of these incredible pictures of some of the women that are his relatives that work at collecting and gathering the wool from the Changtang, from the wild areas, and spinning it for them. And so they have a company called We Are Cow. And it's really extraordinary stitching and weaving with consciousness, awareness, and respect. And we're going to meet with some of the extraordinary textile change makers. Ladakh is a very dynamic place right now. And so this is Jigmat Norbu and his wife of Jigmat Couture there in the center. And on the right, we have Munisha Ahmed. Both of them are doing extraordinary at how do you take old and traditional, spectacular textile heritage tradition and how do you make it contemporary and haute couture, and so that the traditions can continue today and are appreciated and respected. So we will meet with them, and I can tell you their work is astonishing and gorgeous and beyond inspiring. We will also then go up to source. We will go up into the Changtang, where the nomads are with Tsering Angtak, and we'll get a chance to spin some of the wool ourselves as it's being made. So there's a lot of, we believe in experiential education. And we're also going to meet with Tsering Palmo, Ani Palmo. She's a doctor of traditional medicine. She happens to be a nun, and what a fantastic activist and change maker. She could see, how do you make Tibetan Buddhism make sense to today? And so she decided to train traditional nuns as modern healthcare workers so that they had a gift, they could contribute to healing and healing in their communities and villages. So we will hopefully be able to meet with her. She's an old dear friend. And we're going to also meet Amchi Smenla is a good friend of these traditional doctors. I used to spend years up there with them and learning about the ethnobotany, the medical plants and the natural dyes, as well as the healing plants that are used for the body, not only those that go on the body. So if you want an extraordinary adventure in a place of magical light, big wide spaces, you'll sort of notice now between the skies of Mongolia and of Ladakh, my personal love of pastoralists and their traditions, nomads and their traditions, and rich Buddhist culture is something that's a little bit of my own weakness here. But I would love to be able to share with you some of the richness and wealth of that. Now we're moving on to Bhutan. So if high desert is not your thing, in Bhutan is a Himalayan country. It's in the eastern part of the Himalayas. It's very lush. It gets a wonderful rainfall, and so weaving spirit with non-human worlds. This pilgrimage will be October 2nd to 12th, and this is our luxury trip. If those other trips sounded a little bit too rough and adventurous for you, I recommend coming on this trip. As many of you may know, Bhutan, known to the world as the land of gross national happiness, they also have a tariff that they wisely, as a small country, put on as a tax onto their tourists so that to help to support the development of the country. And so that is one thing that actually adds to the price. That is a picture of Taksang that we have there. That's a very tiny map, but it gives you a sense of the little teeny place of Bhutan. It's wedged with China below it. It's Nepal to one side and Assam, which I'll talk about later, to its other side. So many people talk of this as Shambhala. Its beauty is extraordinary. We have a very, very special itinerary here for any of you who maybe have ever been to Bhutan before and you're dying to come back. You really might want to consider our trip. And for those of you who've never been, we're going to be going to Boomtang, and it's in the very center of the country. It's where the last of the sheep that are raised, they have yatra, it's called, this really exquisite form of woolen fabric that is grown there. And then we're going to be going into the Thimphu, into the capital, where we're going to be at the Royal Textile Academy. They have a fabulous national, incredible textile museum. And we're going to have full-on workshops in natural dyes and weaving. So I could go on about the ancient history of textiles, their reciprocity. This is a blessing scarf that's being offered. And where you're going to see some elements of this that are alive even today. This is the king and queen of Bhutan. You can see how important actually textiles and identity, national identity are for the Bhutanese. You can see on the very up above, you'll see the colors of white, yellow, and red, green and blue that symbolize the elements of the universe. So there's a cosmology to it. So this explosion of colors, I mean, honestly, Bhutan is like the Guatemala if you love, some of the very finest modern contemporary embroidery textile work in the world. Bhutan is really the place to go. And we have a chance to meet some of the greatest, foremost makers in this country. I've been leading trips to Bhutan for National Geographic for over 20 years. I first went to Bhutan for my teacher, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's when we cremated him, and that was almost 40 years ago. So I have very close relationship, and I even my foster children, I have grandchildren that are half Bhutanese, and I have a son-in-law who has over 13 children. So I joke that I have relatives in every town. This is Om Karma. She's the royal weaver. She wove the robes that the king wore to his coronation, as well as for his wedding. This is Om Tsering Chuden. She's a foremost dyer. And this is Karma Chuden, who I was just with. This picture is less than a month old at the IFAM here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She is really a national living treasure of Bhutan, foremost dye and weaver, and she'll be helping us to learn some of her magical arts and how she works and makes her indigo, etc. The color palette, the Bhutanese it's a real renaissance because there were aniline dyes made from petroleum for over 100 years. We think of traditional textiles usually in bright, explosive colors. We don't realize that a lot of those dyes are relatively recent. And yet the Bhutanese are finding very subtle, and they're experimenting. It's a very, very exciting time at creating magnificent and extraordinary colors. There is definitely economics, and we'll get into it, of natural dyes and where they come from and the impact of that. So the sosar, the synthetic dyes, and takonim, the natural dyes. And as any good and natural dye person knows, the biomordants are really the key. You can have beautiful colors, but if you wash it once and it all drain away, what does it mean? So the Bhutanese have magnificent recipes and magnificent herbs that they use. And of course, there's a lot of extraordinary taboos still to this day about dyeing and magical secrets, and if you're pregnant, and who brings good luck, and who should never know the dyeing secrets to ensure that your dye is well. And anyone who's played with indigo knows that, and that's a global world story. This is my teacher who passed away, but I want to share with you these incredible colors that come from monasticism and their symbolism, and we'll learn all about that. These are the herbs that are traditionally made to make yellow, green, and black. These are some that are used to make red, oranges, gray, purple, pink, and brown. Here's some more. And of course, then even insects that make those colors. And we'll learn all about lichens. And these are some of the herbs. I'm going to go into detail. You can see that after 30 years as an ethnobotanist in Nepal, this is some of my great passion. We're going to learn about some of the different indigos and how they make blues, how they make browns, how they make blacks, how they make yellows. And we also will see those in action in the beautiful prayer flags, as well as in the dancers and their extraordinary costumes. So if you want to learn about the philosophy of happiness, and that their interesting attempts and the challenges of that. It's a real green lung. Over 2/3 of the country is protected, and some of the challenges that Bhutan is facing, as well as the joy and happiness that I hope you'll return to with the weaving. So I hope to share that with you, and hopefully you will get as colorful as in these beautiful kiras at your time there. And with the prayer flags flying up at Taksang, at Tiger's Nest, the elements that will raise your wind horse or your good luck and prayers. They also symbolize the 5 Buddha families and colors. So I hope that I've shared a little bit how close Bhutan is. But I had an amazing time exploring Assam 2 years ago. And I would really love, I don't know if I can turn on a light here. You guys can see me a little bit better. There's that a little bit better. And so we're going to go to Assam October 28th to November 8th. And that is a 9-day trip. If you can see, so Ladakh was in far northern India. I'm just doing a little geography lessons. And Assam is a fascinating place. It's further east of Bhutan. And you can see, whoops, on the far left, there is a picture of Assam. And really extraordinary, the Indo-Brahmaputra ecosystem, one of the richest in all of South Asia. It has some of the heaviest rainfall of anywhere in the world. And of course, many of you may know about tea, Assamese teas, which of course we'll not only drink, but we can use as a dye. And they're extraordinary silks. This is one of my favorite books. I found it after I had been there, but it's called In Search of the Wild Silk. And this is Erie silk. And as you may know, it's called the peace silk because it has a unique opening on the end so that you don't actually have to kill the larvae to make the silk. But in fact, the tribal people there often like to eat it. So it's a wonderful way of maintaining. They say, why would I want to grow and expand and scale up and make more? Because I could never eat that much. So they have their own natural biodiverse regions. The Erie silk, though, and they have extraordinary relationships. And that's what I find, that connection, that biophilia. They're connected with these animals, with these moths. And I hope that you will make those connections as well. And then in the moths, it's challenging. This is, she's a wonderful woman who works with the 7 weaves, Asita, and she has her own, these are her Erie moth larvae, and the challenges they're having, because with climate change, what's happening is that it's harder and harder to actually be able to, the moths are very fussy and they only like a certain temperature. So there's a race going on genetically to try to be able to ensure them that it's not only us humans that are suffering with climate change, but it's also all creatures. And as you can see, this extraordinary fiber that is made and has been made since at least the 2nd century. And I want to show you also about the Muga silk. This is the little tiny larvae on the sticks. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm actually showing you here, this is actually I call it the moth brothel. And this is the Muga silk. It's the most expensive silk found on this planet. And yes, they are copulating as we speak here. And it's really unbelievable how humans have figured this out. And this is when they're in the larvae stage. And they're spinning. I'm just giving you some sense of the beautiful people that we'll meet. Look how fat that is. That's the Muga caterpillar. We'll also have opportunities for dyeing, but I want to share with you this extraordinary, to show you how they actually take these and then the process to come to this, to make the actual golden silk of the Muga. That's in its natural form. It's a very unique fiber, and it's rare and it's precious, and it's a real challenge, the ecology. And this is the Erie moth. So we're going to learn all about the moths and also about the makers themselves. As we all know, women were the very first computer programmers, and that weaving and textile making has been a 20,000-year-old female endeavor. Here, a woman in Sawakuchi, she's making it up. And so can a piece of clothing conserve biodiversity, empower indigenous communities, and bring economic freedoms is something that our good friend here, Ritu Raj of Seven Weaves, here with some of his staff and his makers, asks. A really extraordinary man, the profound passion for biodiversity and the role and link in textiles. And they will be our hosts as we explore and richly the biodiversity of this extraordinary region. This is a piece of Assamese silk that was found in Tibet, brought to England, and is at the British Museum. It's one of their most precious pieces to give you a sense of the rich history that comes from this region. So in Sawakuchi, we'll also visit. It's sort of like the Leeds, or where the mills that we had in the UK. This was known as, is still to this day, where they're making large numbers of silk moths. So we'll also have a chance to explore the Kazaranga and some of these incredible wildlife, where there's rhinos, there's a huge wild elephant populations in Assam. You can see some of the beautiful lakes. We're going to have a chance, and with wild elephants, we'll also be going on a river trip on the Brahmaputra, one of the great rivers of all of Asia, and to understand its ecosystem. And we'll also go visit Kamakya, one of the extraordinary incredible, if you're into the divine feminine, it's one of the greatest we call Shakti Peats, meaning if you're interested in understanding the history of the divine feminine. In India, it's a must, and especially for tantrikas, and those tantra, as many of you may know, means to weave. So I can't really tell you as much as I'd like to about Morocco. It's going to be an extraordinary project. We're going to be doing this artisan project with the fabulous Nina Mohammed and Leslie Robertson. They're extraordinary dynamos. This is a From Soil to Carpet project that we did with the Anlo Women's Cooperative with the Microbe Institute. And it's going to be from the Atlas Mountains into Tangier and to Casablanca and on. So I look forward to sharing that and more with you, but that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of our trips that we're going to have. These are once-in-a-lifetime adventures. If you want to connect in a very deep and meaningful way, if you want to weave yourself with other communities and cultures and ecosystems, and I encourage you to come and join us and come and learn more. And so that's, please look us up. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to learn more in depth about any of those trips, come join me. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you out in the mountains, or up on the steppes, or in the Indo-Brahmaputra range. All the best to you, and take care.